There are moments, etched in fire and steel, where the future of the entire world balances on the edge of a single heartbeat. For me, that moment came at 10:22 in the morning, 5 miles above the vast, indifferent blue of the Pacific Ocean, with the fate of nations resting on the wings of my dauntless dive bomber. My name is Leo Vance, and on that morning, June 4th, 1942, I was just a young man trying to keep my hands from shaking on the control stick. The air on the flight deck of the USS Enterprise had been thick with the smell of aviation fuel and the nervous energy of 1,000 souls holding their breath. We were the last line of defense, a fragile shield against an unstoppable force. The Japanese fleet, fresh from victory after victory, was bearing down on the tiny atoll of Midway. They were the titans of the sea, and we were the long shot. My squadron, the Sky Falcons, climbed into our SBD Dauntless dive bombers, each of us sharing silent nods that spoke volumes. We were more than a squadron. We were brothers, bound by an unspoken pact to fly into the heart of the storm, knowing full well that many of us would not be coming back. The roar of our engines was a defiant shout against the silence of the sea as we lifted off, a small swarm of steel dragonflies ascending into a sky that felt ominously empty. The flight to find the enemy was an exercise in agonizing suspense. For over an hour there was nothing but the endless blue of the water meeting the endless blue of the sky. The radio was a cacophony of static and clipped reports from other squadrons. We heard the torpedo bombers go in first, brave men flying low and slow, straight into a wall of anti-aircraft fire. We heard their calls cut short, one by one. A cold dread began to settle in my gut. They had been wiped out, sacrificed to draw the enemy's fighter patrol down to sea level, leaving the skies above the carriers exposed. It was a brutal, heartbreaking calculation, and we were the second half of that equation. Our squadron commander's voice crackled over the radio. Enemy fleet spotted. Bearing 090. Good luck, and give 'em hell, and then we saw them. 4 pristine Japanese aircraft carriers, sailing in a perfect box formation, arrogant in their power. They looked like untouchable fortresses from our altitude. In an instant, the sky around us exploded into a nightmare. Black puffs of anti-aircraft fire, we called it flak, blossomed like deadly flowers. Streaking through them came the Mitsubishi Zeros, the most feared fighter planes in the world. They were faster, more maneuverable, and they swarmed us like angry hornets. Their strategy was clear and lethally effective: to break our formation. They darted between our planes, their machine guns chattering, forcing us to peel off and defend ourselves. They wanted to isolate us, to turn our coordinated attack into a chaotic free-for-all where they could pick us off one by one. I saw my wingman, a good kid from Ohio named Danny, brake hard to evade a Zero on his tail. Another Falcon went down, trailing a plume of black smoke, a funeral pyre against the blue canvas. The squadron was scattering, the plan was falling apart. In that moment of pure chaos, a strange clarity washed over me. I saw the Zeros luring us away, pulling us into individual dogfights while below them, the carriers were preparing to launch their own planes to finish us off. We could fight the Zeros and die bravely, accomplishing nothing, or we could ignore them. We could ignore the training that screamed at us to defend ourselves and instead do the one thing they didn't expect. We could go for the heart. My thumb pressed the radio transmitter button. My voice, somehow steady, cut through the static. "All Falcons, this is Vance, to hell with the fighters. Follow me, we're going for the flat tops, now!" It was a gamble, a desperate, insane call to ignore the wolves at our heels and attack the shepherd. For a terrifying second, there was only silence. Then, one by one, my brothers banked their planes, leaving the Zeros behind and forming a ragged line on my wing. We were committed. We were diving. I pointed the nose of my Dauntless straight down at the biggest carrier in the formation, the legendary asterisk, Akagi asterisk. The world became a screaming vortex of wind and noise. The ocean rushed up to meet me at over 250 miles per hour. The G-forces pressed me into my seat, my vision narrowing to a tunnel. All that existed was the flight deck of the asterisk, Akagi asterisk, growing larger in my sights. The ship's deck was painted with a giant red circle, the Hinamaru, the rising sun. It was my only target. Flak shells burst around me, shaking my plane violently. I could hear the ping of shrapnel hitting my fuselage. I ignored it. I held the dive, steady, steady, my altimeter unwinding frantically. 5,000 feet. 4,000. 3. My mind was a steel trap of focus. At 1,500 feet, a height so low it felt like I could reach out and touch the deck, I thumbed the bomb release. The 500-pounder dropped away, and I pulled back on the stick with every ounce of strength I had. The world went gray as the blood rushed from my head. For a moment, I thought I would black out and plunge into the sea. But my plane responded, groaning under the strain, and leveled out just feet above the waves. I blinked hard and looked back, and I saw it. A perfect hit. My bomb had struck the flight deck right amidships, among the fully armed and fueled planes waiting to take off. A brilliant orange fireball erupted, followed by a column of thick black smoke that climbed thousands of feet into the air. It was a mortal wound, and as I looked up, I saw that I was not alone. All across the sky, my fellow Falcons were pulling out of their own dives. To my left, the carrier Kaga was burning from 3 direct hits. To my right, the Soryu was engulfed in a chain reaction of explosions. In the space of less than 5 minutes, the heart of the Japanese fleet had been ripped out. We had done the impossible. That single, decisive moment didn't just win a battle. It changed the world. The tide of the Pacific War, which had been an unstoppable Japanese tsunami, was not just halted. It was turned back. The victory at Midway gave us more than a strategic advantage. It gave us hope. It was a testament to the idea that when faced with insurmountable odds, courage, and a single bold decision can alter the course of history. We pilots, the ones who survived, we have a name for that day. We call it the day the sun stood still, for in that brief, fiery window of time, the unstoppable advance of the rising sun was stopped dead in its tracks. It was a day when ordinary men, farm boys and city kids, were called upon to do something extraordinary. And in the crucible of combat, 5 miles above the sea, we found the strength not just to fight, but to change the future, proving that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit, when unified and resolute, can blaze a light bright enough to guide the way home.